My name is Josh Weszka from Vision Wealth Partners. Today's video topic is an overview of stock option strategies and factors to consider. Stock options allow you to benefit from an increase in your value of your employer stock without putting your own money at risk. You hold the options until you think the stock price has reached a high, and then you exercise and sell or hold those shares. But how and when should you exercise your options? There are several factors to consider, including taxes, your financial circumstances, and how you expect the company and its stock to perform in the future. First, let's discuss taxation of stock options. Starting with non-qualified stock options. When you exercise non-qualified stock options, the spread, the difference between the fair market value of the stock and the exercise price you pay, is taxable as ordinary income. Your employer is required to withhold federal, state, and FICA taxes on the exercise of the non-qualified stock options, whether you hold on to the shares or sell them immediately after exercise. Now let's look at incentive stock options. With ISOs, the spread is not immediately taxable for regular income tax purposes at the time of exercise. However, it is a preference item that is included as income for the purposes of calculating the alternative minimum tax. The difference between the sales price and the exercise price is taxed as a long-term capital gain if you hold the shares from an ISO exercise for at least 2 years after the grant date and at least 1 year after exercise. If, however, you sell those shares before 2 years after the grant date or before 1 year after exercise, you have a disqualifying disposition. This means that the gain at sale up to the spread at exercise is taxable as ordinary income, with any additional gain up to the sales price taxed as short-term capital gains. ISO spread is not subject to FICA, and your employer is generally not required to withhold taxes when you exercise ISOs. You should pay the tax by increasing the withholding on your other income or through estimated tax payments. Moving into restricted stock units. When you are awarded RSUs, there will be no exercise dates associated with them. These shares will vest after a specific period of time has passed from the grant date. With these types of awards, you will be taxed automatically on the fair market value when the shares vest. Therefore, the value of these shares will be reported as compensation and taxed as ordinary income. The employer is required to withhold federal, state, and FICA taxes. Upon a subsequent sale of the shares, any additional gain or loss from the date of vesting will be taxed as short-term or long-term capital gain, or loss, depending on how long the shares were held from the vest date. Finally, let's discuss performance share units, PSUs. These types of awards are tied directly to some measure of the company performance as determined by the employer. You will receive these shares contingent on the company meeting such performance goals within a set period of time. As with RSUs, you will be taxed on the fair market value of these shares upon vesting, and such value will be reported as compensation and taxed as ordinary income. The employer is required to withhold federal, state, and FICA taxes. Sometimes these plans will allow you to defer receipt of the shares at the time when the tax liability will become more manageable. Now, how do we exercise these options? Your company may offer several different methods of exercising options. Following are some of the alternatives you may be able to choose from. Cash. Cash is probably the easiest method to understand. You transfer money to your employer to cover the exercise price and costs. If the options are non-qualified stock options, you must also cover the federal, state, and FICA taxes on the spread. The cash method may be good for an investor who has cash available and wants to hold on to the stock after exercise. If you would have to sell other positions or take a loan to obtain the cash, you should first consider the risk, tax implications, cost, and opportunity cost of doing so compared to the risk and benefits, dividends, and decrease in value of holding that company stock. Also consider whether you already hold a concentrated position in your company stock. Cashless to sell cover. If you want to hold company stock but don't want to use cash, you might consider a cashless sell to cover exercise. With this method, you exercise your options and simultaneously sell enough shares to cover the associated price, cost, and taxes. If your options are ISOs, the sale of the shares to cover expenses will be a disqualifying disposition, and the spread will be taxed as ordinary income. Cashless same-day sale. If you are only interested in the cash proceeds from the exercise and don't want to hold on to the stock, a cashless same-day sale may be right for you. This requires simultaneously exercising your options and selling the resulting shares, leaving you with the net proceeds in cash after the trade is settled. Stock swap. If you already own company stock, you can use your existing shares as payment for the exercise. If you hold ISOs, you will need to consider the disqualifying disposition rules discussed earlier before you exercise with a stock swap. The tax consequences of a stock swap can be complex. so you should also consult with a tax advisor for help making this decision. When should you exercise your options? Your timing will depend on the method you plan to use, cash, cashless, or stock swap, and how long you plan to hold onto those shares. Generally, if you expect the value to increase over time, it makes sense to exercise stock options near their expiration date. You delay taxation until they exercise and are subject to less than the volatility of the stock price. Consult with your financial advisor to determine whether company stock is an appropriate part of your investment portfolio, to evaluate the expected performance of the company and its stock, and to determine whether an exercise would have you facing concentrated stock concerns. To manage the tax consequences, you might also consider exercising your options gradually to spread the taxes over several years. Try to find a balance between tax management, your need for cash, and the value you get out of the stock option. In conclusion, check with your employer to learn about the exercise methods available to you and the process to follow to exercise your options. Be sure to keep copies of your exercise statements, 1099-B forms, W-2, 3921 forms for income tax reporting. Thank you for joining me in today's video. For more videos on a variety of wealth management topics, head to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. I'm Josh Weszka from Vision Wealth, your dedicated wealth management partners.